Thank you so much. Extraordinary People Podcast. I'm here with another inspiring person. Brother, can you introduce your name?
I'm Jasmin. Thank you for calling me inspiring.
Of course. So now, based on the conversation we just had, you are very inspiring. Tell me about what you do.
Right now I'm a lecturer at the university. I'm a history lecturer, but I'm also a volunteer, you could say, for Justice Now action. Yeah, so we call it Justice Now. It's a call for justice for the Palestinian people.
And how do you... is it something that you've had to self-educate about? Was it something that you studied? Is it that you followed the news?
I mean, it was all of those things, I suppose, and it was a long personal trajectory. So, but definitely history played a role in this, me studying history. I've always had some critical, always identified myself with more critical perspectives on history. But there's also some personal stories there. I'm from former Yugoslavia, and there was a genocide there, so I'm recognizing patterns, you know, and I feel that having studied history, actually having taught a course on genocide, the necessity to act became very apparent to me. So I suppose that's personal.
Do you think that the rule of law is respected internationally?
Absolutely not. No, I think that's clear as day. As soon as the international rule of law starts to apply to Western leaders, it becomes very much a question whether they're actually impartially effective or not. You see that Netanyahu is not in fear of being arrested in Western countries, whereas, for example, African leaders have been in the past. Duterte is Filipino leader. So no, the rule of law is definitely not effective. It's not functioning as it should be, I think. Yeah.
What can be done to enforce it?
I know it's difficult because it depends on the willingness of states to abide to it. So there's a lot of autonomy that states retain in this sense, and especially the more powerful states, well, they cannot be forced. There's no world state or something. There's not a world police that forces them to abide to it. So
how can we distinguish between people who would criticize Israel based on, you know, critical study, following the news, maybe things that they've seen on social media, and perhaps people who have nefarious intentions and are perhaps simply just anti-Semitic?
How do you distinguish between them?
Yeah.
Well, I have no simple answer to that. I'm not an expert either, but I think for me personally, ideology, especially in the West, plays a tremendous role in generating support for Israel. So one thing we're trying to do is to spread educational materials that deconstruct all these stories, that tell Western people that Israel is one of us, they can't do wrong. I mean, the point is to be critical, so everyone is able to do wrong. And anti-Semitism and ignorance, well, they're not the same thing, but they can be very much complementary to each other. So it's a process, it's a spectrum.
I could have literally a half an hour conversation with you, but I'm going to try and keep it succinct, and of course if we enjoy this we can always do it again. Yeah. I think one thing that immediately springs to mind is for people who don't know, say, about the atrocities in Yugoslavia, what would you, if you had to summarize it, how could you explain it quickly?
The atrocities in Yugoslavia. Well, I think it was basically a country that was torn apart by ethnic nationalism. And what you see in Yugoslavia very clearly is how polarizing media, ethnic nationalist rhetoric and dehumanization worked in practice, because it produced a situation in which violence and even genocide was considered a legitimate and viable thing to do for the people who actually perpetrated it. So this is something you see in Israel and Palestine today as well, and it's a pattern throughout modern history. So that's a lesson, I think, we can learn from Yugoslavia. And Yugoslavia was, mind you, it was a country where people with different ethnicities actually were friends of each other. They had intermarriages, way more than in the Netherlands or any Western country. So mind you this, and I think people are very ignorant of that fact. The escalation can be very quick. Yeah.
As I asked you off air, and I just repeat it now, is it the fact that was religion made a scapegoat in this whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there are cultural differences between people who practice different religions, that's for sure. But I think in Yugoslavia it was turned towards an ethnic category. So if you're a Muslim, you're a certain ethnicity. If you're an Orthodox Christian, you're a Serbian. If you're a Catholic, you're a Croatian. And it's used to mobilize people around a simple identity, so it's not really about religion.
I think it's such a reductionist viewpoint, because as we all know that within the major faiths, people, you find these faiths all across the world. So it's not like it's, I don't know, Christians are mostly Europeans or whatever. You have so many Christians in, for example, I don't know, places within West Africa. And the same thing for Muslims, you have Muslims everywhere. So it's this very polarizing and very reductionist view of things. I don't know if you...
No, yeah, I agree. It's very reductionist, and I mean the point here is, I think that religions as a broad category are used to like create a certain simple identity for people, whereas even within those religions you have so many variations, and people actually, some people in Yugoslavia who don't practice a religion at all suddenly became
one or the other.
One or the other, and they weren't even practicing that religion, and in that sense maybe look more like people from the other religion who also didn't practice that.
I think in sociology you just call it tribalism, right?
Tribalism, that's the word. Yeah, that's it's a good word you use there. Yeah.
And because the reason I mainly pointed that out is I understand that in, for example, the whole Israel-Palestine thing, that some people, when they want to just kind of reduce it again, it's very much, oh, you know, this is an issue that is specifically between Muslims and Jews, and I don't think it's specifically that.
No, I mean the way I see it, and people I work with, volunteer with, see it, is that it's a colonial project, first and foremostly that. And of course it needs its mythologies and its stories, and they often have a religious connotation too, so religious stories are used there. But it's mostly a colonialist project, so it's about domination and land theft. So that's it. And the Palestinians are there; they're in the way, you could say. That's I think how the Zionists view them. They're in the way. So not necessarily even their religion that's being targeted. It's the fact that they're living on that country, that the space. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any final message that you'd give to people who maybe, you know, like, I mean, people are having a nice day today, they're just getting on with their year, people have got different ambitions, and that's something I would love to discuss with you in the future as well, is like, how did you become a lecturer, so on and so forth. How can they find a way to educate themselves about this whole process without it being, you know, for some people it's very polarizing. Because they, you know, for example, October the 7th, they hear about it and they're like, oh, we cannot in any way, shape associate ourselves with that, and that's sometimes the way the media portrays it, right? And they won't have the background, and they might think that they're supporting something which is evil, or some people take solace in the idea, oh, it's very complicated, and they don't want to take I don't even get me started. We could even have a whole conversation. I don't know if you've had any repercussions at uni for talking about this stuff. I don't know.
No, not really personally, no. But these things happen, and you experience some unease. You always experience unease. Also, wearing a keffiyeh, you know there's people don't react to it sometimes, and you always wonder, like, what do people think, and are there any judgments there? So that's my personal experience. But I mean, people have also, I know colleagues have really had trouble working at uni, at our uni, because also from a personal point of view, because it maintains ties with Israeli universities, and it your own manager, your own university leader puts forward arguments that feel estranging to you, that kind of confirm the dehumanization in your eyes. So that's very difficult psychologically, also for people. But luckily I haven't, and people directly around me, my colleagues, have been nice to me, you could say.
I'll just give one statement. I'd like you to react on it, and I think I'd have to call it there. At least for me, when I try and understand this whole process, there's a saying of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, where he said that when you see evil, when you see an evil act, try and stop it with your hand. And I'm paraphrasing, so I don't want to say it, misquote it. And then the other is that if you can't stop it with your hand, stop it with verbally. Alert people that this isn't right, exactly as you guys are doing. And if you can't stop it with your voice, say it in your heart, that you see someone being abused or someone being and then afterwards you know that you're essentially you're that's the lowest form of faith.
I mean, it's a beautiful phrasing and way of thinking about it. And but I'd say we are definitely able to stop it with our voices and verbally. So if I look around, living in this country, people have the privilege and they should use it. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
We should definitely sit down again if I live here and talk more.
Yeah, me too. So we'll connect. We'll stay connected.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.